Good morning. This is John with the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm going to finish up this week of talking about the man named Peter. Now, we've seen Peter this week being this absolutely confident person who walks away from everything he's known to follow Jesus, to yesterday at the end being someone who gets mad when someone asks him, don't you walk with him? Aren't you his follower? And lies, as they say, lies like a rug. I mean, he throws it on thick. And then he walks off in shame. He knows what he's done. And I suspect he somehow thought his relationship with God was over. But it wasn't. We know from the resurrection stories, he was one of the first to see the empty tomb. He didn't really quite know what it meant, which is understandable. I don't think you or I would have known if we'd have been one who did that. He then becomes one for whom Jesus presents himself after the resurrection, and then he's changed, and he's changed forever. This brings us to Acts chapter 2. Beginning with verse 14, but a little bit of background. There are a lot of people together, and Pentecost has come, and all of a sudden, all of these strangers are singing and praising God, and they've all come to know the Lord. And people are wondering, what is going on? This is weird. So Peter, who evidently was in the crowd, and many were saying that these people were drunk. Peter steps forward. This Peter, who denied he ever knew him, stepped forward in the midst of this crowd, in the midst of a lot of chaos. And we find his words beginning in verse 14. Then Peter stepped forward with the 11 other apostles and shouted to the crowd, listen carefully, all of you, fellow Jews and residents of Jerusalem. Make no mistake about this. These people are not drunk, as some of you are assuming. 9 o'clock in the morning is much too early for that. No, what you see was predicted long ago by the prophet Joel. Let's stop there a minute. I would think it took a lot of courage for Peter to speak up. It says he was with the other 11, and none of those spoke up. Now, I wonder why he was the only one. Well, I can't answer that. I'll just have to wonder till I get to heaven and ask God. But Peter spoke up. And this time, instead of like the night of the trial, going with the crowd, he stands up against the crowd. And he says, these people are not drunk like you're saying. He's a changed man. But what's more importantly here is to see that even though he fouled up horribly just a few days before this, God still used him, and he knew it. He finally had confidence that God wanted him to have all along. And he gets up and he explains from the passage in Joel chapter 2, and I'll just read some of it. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see vision, and your old men will dream dreams. And he goes on to say, I will cause wonders in heaven above, signs on the earth below. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Well, someone jokingly said the difference between being a young man and an old man is whether you have visions or you dream dreams. Well, Peter stands against the crowd this time, and he knows the power of God. And some have said that this is actually the beginning of the church. This is the beginning when lots of people began to understand and believe in the risen Lord. And Peter says this has been prophesied for a long time, and now it's here. And everybody, good, bad, rich, poor, men, women, this race, that race, of this language or that language, everyone, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Peter morphs, if you will, from a man of great courage and dedication and determination to follow Jesus to a man who questions and then ultimately refuses to even come close to admitting that he knew him, to falling into shame, to now becoming a man of extreme boldness and extreme power. How did he do that? Well, he didn't. God did it. God is a God of changing people. He changed Peter, and Peter says he's now changing all these others. And he'll change you and me if we'll let him. Even for those of you who are listening that have never thought God was worth much of your time. And even worse, those of you who only talk to him in vulgar language. He still changes people. And he wanted to change you into the person he always meant for you to be. Doesn't matter your age. Doesn't matter your circumstances. God is in the person changing business. And this sermon, this speech, this whatever it was, shows how much Peter changed. If Peter can do it, you can do it. You really can. So I invite you to spend the rest of today, maybe the weekend, thinking about who are you? Are you a follower of the man Jesus? Are you a real follower or just someone who gives lip service to it? Wherever you are, God loves you and he wants you to know his love too. So thanks for listening all this week. Next week, I'm going to talk about the writings of Peter and the kinds of things he said. But I hope for this weekend, you have a great weekend. That your eyes will be opened and your hearts will be opened, and that you might see Jesus in a new and a fresh way. Thanks for listening. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Take care of yourself. I'll see you on Monday.